The noise of the crowd hummed at a fever pitch, excitement swirling through the air like a tightly wound spring ready to snap. Caitlin Clark stood poised, a figure of sheer confidence on the court, her gaze unwavering as she dribbled, eyes scanning her surroundings. Clark wasn't just another star in the WNBA landscape, she was a force, a player whose presence on the floor sent ripples across the basketball world. Her style was electric, every move a blend of sheer skill and a hint of showmanship that could silence doubters in an instant. But this particular game, marked not by Clark's undeniable talent, but by something far more unsettling, would be remembered for reasons that no player or fan ever wishes to recount. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. From the opening tip, there was an unspoken tension that seemed to hang over the court like an ominous storm cloud. The game began with its usual fire, Clark driving past defenders with her trademark quick cuts and precision shooting. Yet, as the minutes ticked by, an odd pattern emerged. The referees, clad in their crisp black and white stripes, appeared to have developed an extraordinary interest in every move Clark made. Their whistles cut through the noise, sharp and relentless, stifling the fluid pace of the game. Calls that would typically draw raised eyebrows were now met with gaping mouths and the bewildered shakes of heads. Charging fouls for the lightest contact, travels called with an almost theatrical flair, and a string of defensive infractions that seemed as if they were plucked from the pages of a handbook nobody else was reading. Each time, Clark's expression flickered between disbelief and frustration, her usually unflappable demeanor challenged with every blown whistle. The fans caught on quickly. Boos echoed from the stands, rolling across the arena, unified in their discontent. Even commentators exchanged glances, their voices stumbling as they attempted to make sense of the string of decisions unfolding on the court. The game pressed on, though it lacked the natural rhythm that made basketball beautiful. It wasn't just that Clark was being targeted. It was the way the calls shifted the entire dynamic of the play. Teammates found themselves second-guessing passes, the ball moving like it was weighted with doubt. The opponents, not blind to the strange shift in officiating, exploited the new landscape with calculated moves. It wasn't an issue of talent or preparation. It was as if the court itself had been tilted, and the ball now rolled steadily against Clark and her team. Clark's frustration was palpable. She threw her hands up after yet another dubious call, her eyes darting from referee to scoreboard, the fire in them threatening to ignite. Her jaw tightened, and there was a moment where it seemed she might lose her composure completely. But then came that familiar pause, the quick inhale, as she clenched her fists and forced herself to refocus. If there was one thing about Caitlin Clark, it was that she didn't crumble under pressure. She thrived in it, fed off it like a fire draws on oxygen. But the referees, stoic and unwavering, remained resolute in their calls. It became a game of push and pull, where every point Clark clawed back seemed to be met with a whistle that blew the progress apart. The irony was almost laughable, if it hadn't been so maddening. The gymnasium, usually a stage for Clark's brilliance, now felt like a theater for the bizarre. Calls that should have gone unnoticed became the main act, drawing attention away from the game itself and onto the referees, who suddenly seemed like characters in their own strange drama. In one particularly memorable moment, Clark drove into the paint, sidestepping her defender with a kind of agility that left spectators wide-eyed. She went up for a layup, the ball spinning gracefully from her fingertips, only to be met with a whistle that stopped everyone mid-cheer. A foul. Offensive. The kind that on any other day wouldn't even make the highlight reel. The arena erupted in disbelief. Clark's eyes narrowed, brows drawn as she approached the referee, hands on her hips, the very picture of restrained exasperation. The ref, impassive, gestured with a dismissive wave that sent a ripple of indignation through the crowd. Clark retreated to her spot, and the game resumed. But now, every movement felt like a dare. The spectators whispered, some muttered under their breath, and others yelled outright. The tension between players and officials buzzed like an electric current. Each time Clark touched the ball, there was a collective holding of breath, as if everyone was bracing for the next unexpected whistle. Yet her teammates, seasoned and sharp, seemed to play as if walking a tightrope, cautious not to tip the delicate balance and draw further attention. There were moments when Clark's usual fire sparked through, though, cutting through the referee-induced fog. She'd drain a long three-pointer, the arc perfect, the net snapping satisfyingly as the ball slipped through. And in those moments, the crowd roared, a reminder of what they had come to see. Unbridled talent, skill honed to perfection. Yet, it wasn't long before another whistle would pierce the air, like an alarm reminding everyone that normalcy was, for tonight, out of reach. The tone of the game shifted from competitive to combative. The calls came in clusters, each more confounding than the last. Clark's opponents were given a wide berth, while her own movements were scrutinized to the point of absurdity. A bump here, a glance there, any interaction seemed fair game for another blow of the whistle. The referee's insistence on control didn't just change the game's tempo, it changed its spirit. What should have been a display of athleticism and strategy turned into an endurance test, with Clark at the center of an ordeal that few athletes could manage with any grace. The frustration bubbled over when Clark, fighting her way through a tough defensive set, passed to a teammate only to hear the now expected shrill of the whistle. The foul was called away from the ball, a move that had the bench rise in protest and sent Clark into a moment of visible exasperation. She ran a hand through her hair, paced a step, and for a second, the resolve she always carried seemed to falter. It was the expression of someone caught in a situation so ludicrous that words failed, leaving only gestures and raw emotion to tell the story. Fans on social media latched onto clips and replays, dissecting each dubious call. Memes sprouted up in real time, humor wrapped in disbelief, spreading like wildfire. The narrative was set. Caitlin Clark wasn't playing against just another team. She was battling unseen forces wielding whistles. The footage replayed on loop, Clark charging into the lane, defenders clinging, yet somehow it was she who was flagged. The internet buzzed with debates, some dry with sarcasm, others heated, questioning what exactly was unfolding in a game that should have been straightforward. The referees, however, maintained their poker-faced precision. Each call, justified in their minds or otherwise, chipped away at the structure of the game, piece by piece. Players on both sides hesitated, each possession a minefield where a simple dribble could end in a foul. The game's pace dragged, interrupted repeatedly by pauses, gestures, and confusion. What should have been an explosive showcase devolved into something closer to theater, one where the roles of protagonist and antagonist were becoming increasingly blurred. Clark, to her credit, kept playing. Each whistle was met with a reset of her stance, affirming of her resolve. Even as the game tilted more with each infraction, she pressed forward, muscles tense, eyes steely. She was battling on two fronts, against defenders determined to shut her down and against the whistle-happy referees, seemingly hell-bent on hindering her every move. The crowd sensed it, an undercurrent of admiration weaving through their frustration. Yet the story of that game was written not in points or dazzling assists, but in the frustration etched on Clark's face and the disbelief echoed in the shouts from the stands. The game ended not with the roar of a final buzzer met with cheers, but with a stilted, uneasy silence that settled over the arena. It was as if everyone present had witnessed something off-kilter, a performance where the spotlight drifted off the star and shone onto those who should have been invisible. Players shook hands, but the energy was gone. Clark, ever the sportswoman, nodded to opponents, exchanged a few quiet words with her coach, but her expression carried the story of the night, a blend of frustration, determination, and the realization that sometimes even the most skilled player can find the game tilted against them. It was the game where Caitlin Clark played not just against her opponents, but against the very system meant to keep things fair. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.